Greetings, members, one and all of the Salivation Nation. We're seeing quite a lot of activity today. Gold has soared as trade worries trigger flight to safety, and we have an even bigger concern. What about the possibility of a currency war? Devaluing currency is the topic. That's the reason. So what will be the response? A devaluation of the dollar, which means that gold could go up even more, gold and silver together more than likely. This comes to us from CNBC.com. Gold surged as much as 2% on Monday to its highest level in more than 6 years as a worsening U.S.-China trade conflict prompted investors to dump riskier assets for safe havens, with a weaker dollar lending further fuel for bullion's run. Spot gold was up 1.4% at $14.60 an ounce after hitting its highest level since May 2013 at $1,469.60. Gold futures rose 1.1% to $1,473. In the latest flare-up in the long-drawn trade spat, China on Friday said it would fight against a decision by U.S. President Donald Trump to slap an additional 10% tariff on $300 billion worth of Chinese imports. What is driving gold is fear of these tariffs and the fear of China retaliating, said Michael Motosek, a head trader of U.S. Global Investors, adding that a host of uncertainties surrounding the global economy, an environment of negative bond yields, and an ongoing currency war were making the case for gold. There's a lot of different things at play here, and the market's tumbled a lot today because of that. It's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. And what is driving gold is fear of these tariffs. Gold is in a bull market, and it's going to trend higher. This is just the start of another wave going up. I would not be surprised to see gold hit the $1,500 level by November, December, and keep it sustained there. I agree completely on it. I think there's just too much at stake here. We may see the metals dip a bit, but I think there's just too many unknowns. And, with the Dow plunging this much today, it could recover relatively quickly after the dust settles, so to speak. But nonetheless, I think there's a lot of fear out there. The economy is fragile anyway, I believe. We're long overdue for a recession. Then you have things like this going on. And, the global negative bond yields, the currency war that could be potentially going on here. And I think that's something to be really concerned about. Trump's tariffs in China may force the U.S. Federal Reserve to cut interest rates more than it had hoped was necessary to protect the economy from trade-related risk. All this volatility, growth fears, persistent weakness, and economic data will be good enough for a risk-off environment, said Benjamin Liu, an analyst at Phillips Futures. The dollar slipped to near a 2-week low against key rivals, making bullion cheaper for investors holding other currencies, but rose against the Chinese yuan. Trade worries also drove a sell-off in global stock markets. China let its yuan weaken below the 7 per dollar level on Monday, an 11-year low, while the offshore yuan fell to its weakest since international trading of the Chinese currency began. This might encourage some more gold buying in China, as a weaker yuan means a stronger dollar, and gold provides you exposure to the dollar, which makes a gold attractive for the Chinese. And keep in mind, the Chinese, they're already getting a lot of gold, and it's in their culture. So imagine them probably get more to protect themselves. The Shanghai Gold Exchange said it would raise the margin requirements on its gold contract. The trading limit on the contract would also be raised. In India, domestic prices soared to a second, dampening demand for the metal and the world's second biggest gold consumer after China. Meanwhile, holding the world's largest gold-backed exchange-traded fund, SPDR Gold Trust rose 830.76 tons on Friday. Elsewhere, silver rose 1.3% to $16.42 per ounce. Platinum climbed 1.2% at 852.60 per ounce, and palladium gained 1.2% to 1423.13 an ounce. So it's still below gold, but let's pause and take a look at the precious metal prices right now. We can see big movements here. The clear winner was gold. And as I've said before, it is the ultimate safe haven, and by a percentage level, it has moved up the most of the precious metals here. 1.65%. It's now at $1,464.70 per ounce. Silver is at $16.47, up 1.14%. And platinum rose $10 to $858 per ounce. So we're seeing some movements all across the board. Palladium is the weakest of the movements between the metals, but still up $10 at 0.72%. So I think this idea now that we're seeing silver, I believe, actually starting to make movements along with gold, but a lot of that could be played as a commodity as well. And it's going to be quite interesting to see how this plays out, especially if there are fears of a currency war. We had a trade war, and it's obviously affecting a lot here now. Trump is taking a lot of risks with the strong economy right now by putting China to task, and I think there's some of that could be warranted considering the Chinese economy. They're spending a lot of money on military, and but their other economy is weak, or the actual economy is weaker than ours. And so, with that being said, I think Trump thinks he may have the upper hand here. And the actual worst case scenario is that there will be less and less trade, if any, between the two nations, and we'll have to produce here in the United States, which will expand, but also be a lot of growing pains. We'll have a lot more expensive items. And but it's one of those things where I think in many ways some may say that that may be what Trump has been wanting all along, but we'll see how that plays out. A currency war, which means that the yuan is being devalued now by China as a tactic in this trade war, is one aspect. And if the president decides that he wants the dollar devalued, well, that's going to cause the metals to go up even more. That $1,500 gold by the end of the year may be, maybe a pipe dream. It may go up to $1,600. Who knows? It just depends on what happens with this. If that's his retaliatory strike to actually want to devalue the dollar, make no mistake, Trump has actually made some mention that he thought the dollar was too strong in comments over a year ago. So this may be something that we'll see happen, especially if it's something that correlates with either another round of quantitative easing, which I think would be a grave mistake, or if there's a further interest rate cuts down the road, especially a bigger cut, especially if it gets bad and they decide to do a 0.5 point next time before the end of the year. We'll see how it plays out. It's a little concerning. We'll see how this does play out. The one theory is that with this trade war is that China is waiting us out. There's no question they would rather have somebody else in office rather than Trump after 2020. In fact, any kind of election meddling that could occur, we should really be more fearful of the Chinese than the Russians at this point. They have a lot more to gain from getting Trump out of office. And so they may be trying to bide their time with the backing out of what was seemingly a positive movements in negotiations. It completely wiped all months and months of negotiations out the window. They're starting from scratch again. And that's what part of this is. And they may be playing games right now with the negotiators. So we'll see what happens. So that means that throughout until election day, I believe we will see some volatility, some uncertainty with regards to trade, and this could come to a head. And the biggest threat will be the economy, and that's not good politically for Trump. It's good for gold and silver, But as you know, and you've heard me discuss on this channel, uh, just because gold and silver are up or will be up, that's not necessarily a good thing. You know, it validates why we hold those precious metals, but it means that the dollars we hold are worth less than they were, which means that buying the staples we need, food and gas, lodging, all that stuff will go basically inflated. And we don't want inflation, and we want a stable dollar, not necessarily strong. We want it stable and secure, and so we'll see how this all plays out. But a currency war, that's something to look out for next, potentially. Depends on what Trump does to retaliate next. If that happens, look out. And I don't want to make any predictions as to where gold and silver will go, but it doesn't seem like it will be good in terms of the overall health of the economy. Although us holding gold and silver, we're protecting ourselves, and that's what it's about. So the gold and silver that you do have will be worth, worth more in terms of inflationary standards. And so that's the one good saving grace, and that's what it's about. It's about hedging. And those of us who hold these precious metals, well, we're hedging. That's a beautiful thing in a way, but really, we're most of us in this the hearing within the sound of my voice, we're in accumulation mode. So we want the prices to be lower so we can accumulate more. So we'll see how this all plays out. It'll be interesting to see how silver reacts. Will it react along with gold, or will it kind of slowly putter along behind gold in terms of the ratio? We'll see. Nonetheless, those who have bought silver, and one person who had a comment on my channel bought it when it was $14 an ounce, he's sitting pretty right now. So depending on when you buy it, it's starting to go up in price. So you can see that. It's just all a matter of timing in terms of when he got in and what you purchased it, which is why it's so important, especially if you're a hardcore stacker, to dollar cost average. And see how that works out statistically for you in the end, or during the long term. All right, well, there you go. There you have it. Post your thoughts below. Would like to extend a multitude of gratitude to you all for watching, and encourage you to please rate, share, comment, and subscribe.